Chapter 579, I'll give you 3 moves. Chapter 579, I'll give you 3 moves. I have reached the 9-cloud realm, so my strength has improved to an unbelievable level. However, it's hard to determine the exact level my power has reached. As Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, he could tell that his strength was much greater than before. However, he was not clear about how much more powerful he was. Hence, what he needed most was to find a strong opponent to battle with so that he could judge how strong he was now. Ordinary human temple masters or monster kings were not strong enough for this. However, crystal-armored monster emperor, who was currently standing in front of Jian Wushuang, was strong enough to test his strength, so he would not waste this chance. Sword Emperor. Crystal-armored monster emperor said, "You just said you would give me the compass if I can defeat you?" "Right." Jian Wushuang nodded. "Haha." Crystal-armored monster emperor laughed willfully. Then, with fire burning in his eyes, he said, You humans are getting more and more arrogant. How dare you fight with me with strength that is only in the cloud realm? Since you are determined though, I'll do as you wish." Sword Emperor. "Go ahead. I'm right here. I'll even give you 3 moves so that you can't say I'm bullying you." Crystal-armored monster emperor stood in the air with his hands behind his back, looking down at Jian Wushuang from above. In his mind, Jian Wushuang's level of strength was not worth mentioning. That was true. Crystal-armored monster emperor was quite famous, and he was capable of looking down on the human temple masters, even the experts at the level of Iceberg temple master Iceberg, let alone someone like Jian Wushuang who had only reached the cloud realm. "You'll give me 3 moves?" Jian Wushuang asked with a strange expression on his face. "Very well then, be careful." Jian Wushuang reminded his opponent out of goodwill as the heart-killing sword appeared in his hand. As a mighty power surged forth, the heart-killing sword started to tremble slightly with excitement. Because of how powerful the heart-killing sword was, he was incapable of displaying its full power before he broke through to the 9-cloud realm, but now things were different. Now he could finally use the full power of the sword. While holding the sword in his hand, Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and began to exude an aura of slaughter. Crystal-armored monster emperor, you are one of 3 emperors from the monster population. I will use you to test my own strength. Jian Wushuang muttered before slowly waving his long sword. At this point, a 110-meter-tall golden sword soul phantom suddenly appeared behind him. The golden sword soul phantom radiated a supreme sword essence as it imitated Jian Wushuang and waved its golden longsword as well. At this point, the sword thrust forward. It was a casual attack that didn't even seem to possess any sword skill. But afterwards, swoosh. The space between them was split and a huge sword shadow appeared. The huge sword shadow seemed as if it had the power to destroy anything, and it drew the attention of everyone in the area as soon as it appeared. Most of the surrounding human experts and the countless demonic beasts all cast their eyes towards this move. They could feel an incredible power from this move. The warriors in the cloud realm were unable to display this level of strength, and even ordinary temple masters wouldn't possess this much power. Crystal-armored monster emperor, who was standing in front of Jian Wushuang, had thought poorly of him in the beginning, but he knitted his eyebrows when he felt the power that was being released from this humongous sword shadow. Crystal-armored monster emperor quickly thrust his right palm out like a shot before the sword shadow managed to strike him. Bang! In that instant, the whole area trembled. The 2 terrifying powers slammed into each other. What? Crystal-armored monster emperor was completely surprised because he was forced to retreat in a disorderly manner. He retreated backwards for over 300 meters, almost falling into the horde of demonic beasts, while being chased by the huge sword shadow that Jian Wushuang released. An instant later, the power that still remained exploded. A torrent of sword shadows filled the sky and swept out in all directions, forming many dazzling sword lights. Those sword lights carried such a terrifying amount of power that the surrounding demonic beasts couldn't help being overwhelmed and stricken with a sense of fear. Swoosh! The terrifying sword lights skimmed through the demonic beasts, cutting off their heads and other parts of their bodies as easily as cutting wheat. Even the rank 7 or rank 8 monsters were easily killed by the sword lights without any sign of a struggle. Some of the rank 9 monsters withstood the explosion of sword lights, but most of them had been heavily mauled. After a short period of time had passed, the power emitted by the sword lights finally vanished, but the result had been catastrophic for the demonic beasts. Crystal-armored monster emperor still had a magnificent aura. Even though he had been forced backwards by Jian Wushuang, he was still uninjured. However, at this moment, he glanced around him with a gloomy look on his face. The field was littered with corpses. There had to be hundreds of demonic beasts lying there. Among them were rank 7 and rank 8 monsters who had died in the aftermath of the ruthless Sword Shadow's explosion. It happened in an instant, but the aftermath killed hundreds of demonic beasts who were at least rank 4 and had reached the Cloud Realm. What a terrifying attack. This move had come from Jian Wushuang, who Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor had been looking down on. However, it had only been a casual and random attack without using any sword skill. It was obvious that he had not used his full strength. Silence. The whole area had become silent at this moment. Even most of the human experts who had witnessed what happened just now were completely stupefied. This? Jian Wushuang did this. It was only a casual wave of his sword, yet the aftermath swept out and directly extinguished hundreds of demonic beasts. What is his true level of strength? Did you see? Even Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor was forced to step back hundreds of meters when he confronted this move. What a terrible move. Just by looking at the level of power, that move has surpassed most of the temple masters in our monster exterminating league, let alone the fact that it was only a casual attack by Jian Wushuang. Everyone was filled with shock and bewilderment. Everyone was frightened by the strength he had just displayed. In the beginning they thought Jian Wushuang was crazy when he said he would fight with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor, but now, just a random move from Jian Wushuang had almost caused them to surrender. Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor. You just said you would give me 3 moves? Are you sure you want to do that? Chapter 580, A Battle with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor. Chapter 580, A Battle with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor. Are you sure? Jian Wushuang stood in the air with his sword in hand and a surging sword essence as his cold voice echoed throughout the area. Upon hearing this, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor's face darkened. He had indeed looked down on Jian Wushuang before. But now he had to be more cautious as Jian Wushuang had proven his strength with a single move. Sword Emperor, I admit that I underestimated your strength just now. Even though you're merely in the Cloud Realm, you're even stronger than the temple masters in your camp. Since that's the case, I'll go all out to battle with you out of respect. As soon as he finished his words, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor suddenly shook his body. A vast aura immediately swept around and bright purple light surrounded him, gradually condensing into an amethyst armor made of ferocious scales that covered his body and hands. He raised his right hand and clenched his fist. An explosive force burst out and his aura soared as well. I will attack now. The crowd of experts from the human camp held their breath as they watched. Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor was one of the 3 monster emperors, an overlord among the monster population, and the supreme expert who was at the peak of the whole ancient world. What was his real strength? Could Jian Wushuang really battle with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor? Unconsciously, these human experts had become excited and were full of expectations for this battle among experts at the peak. Go ahead. I hope you won't disappoint me, Jian Wushuang smiled lightly. After entering the 9-Cloud Realm, his spiritual power, physical strength, and origin power had been enhanced to a terrifying extent. He was definitely qualified to battle with Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor now. He even had the possibility of winning. Whoosh! The crowd heard a sudden burst of air explode in the air, then they noticed that Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor had already disappeared from where he was standing before. They could only see a purple flowing light moving through the sky at an incredible speed. The next moment, a strong wind with an incredibly suppressive force approached Jian Wushuang head-on, causing his eyes to narrow unconsciously. Boom. With a boom, the whole area began to shake violently. A ferocious palm covered with amethyst scales suddenly blasted through the space in front of Jian Wushuang while turning into a claw. It had transformed into a beast claw, scratching towards Jian Wushuang fiercely. It almost seemed to tear the space in front of him apart. The air was split by this claw. Jian Wushuang stood up in the sky with a smile on his face, sensing the incredible power of this claw. He swung the heart-killing sword lightly and then thrust out. A gorgeous sword move. The moment he swung the sword, the whole area became dark, just like the night sky. The sword shadow became the only light in this night sky, making it extremely gorgeous. But an overwhelming killing intent was hiding behind this gorgeous light. The 7th move of the heart-killing sword technique. It was named Star River. As soon as Jian Wushuang began to comprehend the Slaughter Dao, he also mastered more of the heart-killing sword technique, moves which had been extremely enigmatic before. He had mastered the 5th and the 6th move. He had also comprehended the 7th move, but it was too difficult for him to use at the time. However, after his breakthrough, it became much easier to use. The crowd looked at the spot attentively. In the center of that area, the heaven-tearing claw landed directly on the gorgeous yet deadly sword Shadow. The collision did not create the violent explosion that everyone imagined. Instead, the crowd only heard a ridiculously loud impact and a squeezing sound. At the same time, boom, boom, boom. The aftershocks of the collision swept out in all directions, crushing the surrounding trees, flowers, and gravel into dust. This time, the demonic beasts were smarter and retreated far away so that they would not be affected by the aftershocks. In the core area of the battle, crystal-armored Monster Emperor remained with a cold expression on his face, but a hint of surprise flashed in his eyes. Whoosh! A purple flowing light burst out and appeared on the other side of Jian Wushuang. A competition of speed. With a faint smile, Jian Wushuang turned into a residual shadow. Whoosh! 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 The figures of Jian Wushuang and crystal-armored Monster Emperor flashed through the sky while releasing mighty attacks each time, dazzling the human experts and demonic beasts that were watching them. Violent explosions could be heard echoing throughout the area from time to time. This matchless and fierce battle was being perfectly displayed in front of everyone. On the battlefield, Jian Wushuang and crystal-armored Monster Emperor were fighting fiercely, competing in speed, offensive power, and even various reaction abilities. But the two sides remained even after the fierce battle. Neither of them was able to obtain an advantage over the other side. The human experts were in a daze. Even the temple masters were watching attentively with their eyes wide open. Too strong. Even though I'm a temple master, I don't think I would be able to compete with them. No wonder crystal-armored Monster Emperor is one of the 3 Monster Emperors. His strength is too terrifying. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor is indeed strong, but why is Sword Emperor also so strong? How can Sword Emperor, a Cloud Realm expert, compete with crystal-armored Monster Emperor? Sword Emperor is able to fight crystal-armored Monster Emperor to a draw. Monster, he is definitely a monster. They all sighed because it was so incredible. Temple Master Iceberg, who hated Jian Wushuang, was also watching the battle. When he saw that Jian Wushuang had not lost after battling with crystal-armored Monster Emperor for such a long period of time, an unprecedented shock emerged in his eyes. How is this possible? It's impossible. Temple Master Iceberg could not believe what he was seeing. When those monster spies tried to assassinate Jian Wushuang, the Monster King had easily defeated Jian Wushuang and almost killed him. That happened only a few days ago. But now Jian Wushuang was able to fight crystal-armored Monster Emperor to a draw. Wasn't this level of improvement too horrifying? It's true that he broke through from the Saint Realm to the Cloud Realm. However, even if he jumped directly to the 9 Cloud Realm, he would not be this strong. Temple Master Iceberg stared at Jian Wushuang while the word monster struck him. Chapter 581, The Strongest Killing Move. Chapter 581, The Strongest Killing Move. Up in the air, Jian Wushuang was still fighting fiercely with crystal-armored Monster Emperor, which created huge energy storms. The ground below was full of miserable potholes as if doomsday had arrived. Whoosh, whoosh. They finally separated. Jian Wushuang and the Golden Sword Soul Phantom behind him exuded an even stronger Supreme Sword essence. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, as one of the 3 Monster Emperors, is that your real strength? Jian Wushuang said with a hint of excitement. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor, who was covered with amethyst scales, stared at Jian Wushuang with his weird purple eyes. You're pretty good to be able to fight with me for so long and not lose, but this is the end. I'll use my killing move now. Whether or not you survive depends on your luck. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor's voice was cold and determined. Obviously he had absolute confidence in his killing move. Killing move. Jian Wushuang stared at him. The temple masters who knew a little bit about crystal-armored Monster Emperor changed their expressions when they heard his words. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor's killing move. That move. 7-fold demonic killing. The temple masters all shuddered at the thought of his killing move. Even Temple Master Black Spirit slightly narrowed her eyes and thought, the 7-fold demonic killing of crystal-armored Monster Emperor is extraordinarily powerful. I wonder whether this boy can block it. Crystal-armored monster emperor started his attack. He took a deep breath and then, howl! A monstrous roar broke out from crystal-armored monster emperor, which shook the whole area as it swept out in all directions. Jian Wushuang was closest to crystal-armored monster emperor, so he was immediately hit by this roar. Sound wave attack. Jian Wushuang responded seriously but without any fear. The sound wave attack hit him directly and rushed into his body, causing his blood and aura to become turbulent. But that was all. After Jian Wushuang made his breakthrough to the nine-cloud realm, his body had improved to a superb state, causing his skin, bones and organs to become extremely tough. Therefore this sound wave attack had almost no effect on him. But the sound wave attack was just the beginning. The moment the sound wave attack spread out, crystal-armored monster emperor had already moved. He was as fast as lightning and appeared right in front of Jian Wushuang. His hands stretched out and turned into two claws, fiercely attacking towards Jian Wushuang. The second killing. Crystal-armored monster emperor shouted in a low voice. Before Jian Wushuang could recover from the sound wave attack, the second attack of crystal-armored monster emperor had already arrived. Jian Wushuang changed his facial expression and stepped backwards quickly. The third killing. Crystal-armored monster emperor exclaimed in a cold voice. He suddenly turned around and a long tail appeared behind him. The tail was covered with amethyst scales and was as sharp as a saber. It targeted Jian Wushuang and swept toward his head. So fast. Jian Wushuang was greatly taken aback. The tail was so fast that he was surprised. Fortunately, his reaction was also fast. While he was stepping backwards, he stabbed the tail with his heart-killing sword. Clang. As the metal collision sounded, the tail was hit to one side. The fourth killing. Crystal-armored monster emperor growled again. The amethyst on his body trembled as it grew to cover his whole body, giving him the appearance of an amethyst hill as he violently rushed towards Jian Wushuang. Once Jian Wushuang steadied himself, he had to dodge to another side immediately so as to avoid the amethyst hill. It was so close that he lost his calm manner. The fifth killing. The sixth killing. Two fierce attacks arrived successively. Jian Wushuang struggled to resist them, but he had completely lost his balance and had no opportunity to counterattack. The seventh killing. The cold voice once again reverberated throughout the area. As Jian Wushuang was steadying himself and preparing to attack, a huge fist suddenly came down from above him like a thunderbolt. The huge fist came from crystal-armored monster emperor, who had turned into an amethyst-covered demonic beast and was releasing a ferocious aura. It was too sudden and unexpected. Jian Wushuang did not have time to finish his sword move. He could only struggle to lift the heart-killing sword. Bang! The huge purple fist pounded down onto the heart-killing sword. Its terrifying power descended and forced the heart-killing sword to hit Jian Wushuang in the chest. The violent power passed through the sword and still managed to strike Jian Wushuang. Immediately Jian Wushuang shot downward like a meteorite, crashing into the ground so heavily that a huge crater several meters deep appeared, causing broken stones and dust to blast out. Up in the air, a figure flickered and then crystal-armored monster emperor reappeared. His indifferent purple eyes looked down towards the pit below. At this moment, the whole battlefield had become quiet. Some of the human experts looked at the bottom of the pit while others turned towards crystal-armored monster emperor in horror. Sevenfold demonic killing. This is crystal-armored monster emperor's strongest killing move, sevenfold demonic killing. Temple Master Iceberg shuddered. His strongest killing move actually consisted of 7 different attacks. Each of the 7 attacks were unimpressive on their own. They were actually weaker than ordinary martial arts techniques since they were just simple attacks. However, the combination of the 7 attacks created a terrifying momentum. The 7 consecutive attacks were all unexpected and incredibly powerful, not giving the opponent enough time to resist. Jian Wushuang did not know anything about the sevenfold demonic killing. Even those temple masters who knew the secret of this killing move still could not resist it. The 7 attacks seemed to be simple since they were just outrageous ways of close combat, but they were extremely frightening when used by crystal-armored monster emperor. Is Sword Emperor still alive? The human experts were staring at the bottom of the pit attentively. They had seen that the last blow from crystal-armored monster emperor did not land directly on Jian Wushuang because it was blocked by the long sword. However, everyone still believed that Jian Wushuang would be dead or at least seriously injured after that attack. Chapter 582 Win or Lose. Chapter 582, Win or Lose. Crystal Armored Monster Emperor's strongest killing move is so powerful that only Temple Master Black Spirit in the whole Monster Exterminating League can survive. As for Jian Wushuang, in the end he is just a Cloud Realm expert. It's impossible for him to be alive, Temple Master Iceberg thought with a gloomy face. He really hoped that Jian Wushuang would die in this battle. Although it meant that Crystal Armored Monster Emperor would get the compass, Temple Master Iceberg understood that he could not possess the compass now that its secret had been exposed. The Temple Masters of the Monster Exterminating League also knew that the compass was priceless, but they all hoped that Jian Wushuang would give it to Crystal Armored Monster Emperor and settle the conflict. That did not mean that they had no greed for the compass. On the contrary, they were very eager to get their hands on the compass. But similarly, they knew that they could not possess it with only their little bit of strength. Since it was impossible for him to obtain the compass, Temple Master Iceberg naturally hoped that Crystal Armored Monster Emperor would kill Jian Wushuang. There was already bad blood between him and Jian Wushuang, and the grudge between them was deep. The strength which Jian Wushuang displayed here filled him with an extreme amount of fear. If Jian Wushuang did not die, then he would be in great trouble. Silence emanated from the huge pit for a while. Suddenly, the sound of light footsteps were heard as Jian Wushuang walked out from the pit and arrived in front of the crowd once again. Jian Wushuang's clothes were in rags and his appearance was messy, but that was it. His aura had not weakened at all. It astonished all the spectators. How is this possible? He isn't even hurt. He's unhurt and his aura hasn't weakened at all. Even Crystal Armored Monster Emperor narrowed his purple eyes when he saw Jian Wushuang standing in front of him, completely intact. My strongest killing move didn't even injure him? Crystal Armored Monster Emperor was astonished. Jian Wushuang turned to face Crystal Armored Monster Emperor, with a smile on his face as he said, "Sevenfold demonic killing is indeed good." It really was powerful. 7 ordinary attacks combined to form an extremely terrifying killing move. Even he was not able to completely dodge it and was hit by the 7th move. However, because his body was so strong, it still wasn't enough to really hurt him. Crystal Armored Monster Emperor. Jian Wushuang said coldly, "You've displayed your strongest killing move, so now have a taste of mine." Upon hearing this, Crystal Armored Monster Emperor's expression changed slightly. Jian Wushuang started. He suddenly stretched out his left palm and clapped several times in the air. Vast spiritual power began to surge. Azura secret skill, 18 levels of hell. A chilly cry was forcefully uttered by Jian Wushuang. The area suddenly trembled. Up in the air, above Crystal Armored Monster Emperor's head, scarlet waves that were similar to whirlpools suddenly appeared. Then an 18-floor scarlet pavilion appeared. It had 18 floors with ghost shadows visible on each floor, as its overwhelming power began surging toward Crystal Armored Monster Emperor. The strongest part of the 18 levels of hell was its deterrence. When Jian Wushuang was still in the Saint Realm, he could barely use this skill and could not bring its full power. But now, after his breakthrough to the 9-Cloud Realm, the power of this move could be completely released. The terrifying deterrence struck Crystal Armored Monster Emperor directly. Crystal Armored Monster Emperor was caught in a haze due to the deterrence. It lasted for an instant, which was plenty of time for Jian Wushuang to do many things. He quickly swung his heart-killing sword. The moment he swung the sword, the whole area became dark, just like a night sky. The sword's shadow became the only light in this night sky. A mighty killing intent suddenly surged out. The 7th move of the heart-killing sword technique, Star River. It was too fast, in addition to the fact that Crystal Armored Monster Emperor had been disoriented by the Scarlet Pavilion, so he did not have any initial reaction. By the time he finished struggling to recover himself, the beautiful sword shadow was already in front of him. He could do nothing but watch the beautiful sword shadow as it continued drawing nearer. Suddenly it paused. It paused when it was half a centimeter away from his throat. "Crystal Armored Monster Emperor, you have lost," Jian Wushuang said coldly with his heart-killing sword pointing at Crystal Armored Monster Emperor's throat. Time and space seemed to be frozen. The human experts and the countless demonic beasts looked at them in astonishment. Crystal Armored Monster Emperor lost. He really had lost. Had Jian Wushuang not stopped, the Monster Emperor would have died. Crystal Armored Monster Emperor's face reddened and his amethyst-covered body trembled slightly because his heart was full of anger and unwillingness. He could not accept the fact that he was defeated by a human being, a Cloud Realm human being. But he had to keep his anger and unwillingness under control no matter how strong they were. After all, he lost. Sword Emperor, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor stared at Jian Wushuang and said solemnly, "You've won the battle. I'll leave immediately and I won't set foot in human territory for 1,000 years. As long as the compass is in your hands, I'll never try to obtain it again." Hearing that, Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He did not kill Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor directly in the hopes that Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor would retreat by himself. After all, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor had led thousands of demonic beasts to the battlefield. If he killed Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor, the demonic beasts would definitely be angry and rush towards the human territory. Naturally, it would be good if Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor would leave of his own free will. However, before Jian Wushuang spoke, something suddenly happened. Up in the air near them, a dozen vigorous and majestic auras suddenly appeared. At the same time, a magnificent voice echoed throughout the area. "Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor, as one of the 3 Monster Emperors, how could you be defeated by a human being? How shameful." A hint of ridicule in the voice attracted everyone present to turn around and look at it. They were astonished upon seeing the dozen behemoths that were rushing towards them. Bone Dragon Clan. Chapter 583 Bone Dragon Clan and Second Brother? Chapter 583, Bone Dragon Clan and Second Brother? More than 10 behemoths were rushing towards them. These figures, which were covered in dark purple scales, turned out to be bone dragons that, when they opened their huge wings, were as large as mountains. A magnificent and domineering aura radiated from the bone dragons, making it hard for the human experts and common demonic beasts to breathe. The Bone Dragon Clan, one of the 3 overlord clans among the monster population, had arrived. Bone Dragon Clan. Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor was surprised. The 3 overlord clans were the Bone Dragon Clan, the Crystal-Armored Monster Clan, and the Demonic Ape Clan. The Bone Dragon Clan ranked first as its overall strength was higher than that of the Crystal-Armored Monster Clan. What's more, Bone Dragon Emperor was an immortal being whose age was known by nobody. In the entire ancient world, few people could compete with him, and he was much stronger than Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor. Bone Dragon Clan. The human experts became more anxious upon seeing the appearance of these bone dragons. They had just managed to send the Crystal-Armored Monster Clan away when an even stronger clan, the Bone Dragon Clan, arrived. Did the Bone Dragon Clan also come for the compass? As the giant bone dragons finally appeared on the battlefield, their magnificent aura oppressed the whole battlefield and quieted it down. "Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor, it's so rare to see you face defeat," the leading bone dragon, which was the largest, said in a deep voice. Don't be so complacent. You can try to battle with Sword Emperor. I can guarantee you that only the old devil in your Bone Dragon Clan can compete with him. I'm afraid none of your guys are qualified, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor replied coldly as killing intent surged around him. All the bone dragons in front of him were at Monster King level and possessed extraordinary strength. Nevertheless, since Bone Dragon Emperor, who was the most powerful, did not show up, Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor would not give a damn about them. Hearing his words, the leading bone dragon was silent for a moment before his huge eyes turned towards Jian Wushuang. "Are you Sword Emperor?" the bone dragon asked in a magnificent voice that contained a trace of respect. "I am. May I ask why the Bone Dragon Clan has come here? Are you also after the compass?" Jian Wushuang replied calmly. "The compass?" The leading bone dragon shook his head. "We're not interested in the compass. We were ordered by one of our lords to take you to see him. Please come with us." The bone dragon replied politely. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and thought, "Is the lord he mentioned Bone Dragon Emperor?" Jian Wushuang did not think too much of it but shook his head. He said, "I don't know your lord. It's not necessary for me to meet him. If he insists, he can come to see me. I don't have the time to go with you." Upon hearing Jian Wushuang's refusal, the bone dragon released an oppressing aura. A human being suddenly appeared on the huge bone dragon's back and spoke in a teasing tone. "Third brother, I haven't seen you for so many years. I didn't realize that it was so difficult to invite you now." Jian Wushuang was shocked to hear this voice and immediately raised his head to look at the man standing on the bone dragon's back. He opened his eyes wide in surprise. Second brother?" His voice revealed a little surprise, but it was mostly filled with doubt. Jian Wushuang felt it was completely unbelievable. The man on the bone dragon carried a saber on his back and he had a cold face, which had changed a little over the years, becoming even colder. But Jian Wushuang still recognized him at a glance. Second brother? In this world, only one person was qualified to be addressed as second brother by Jian Wushuang. That was Yang Zixuan, one of Jian Wushuang's 3 brothers from the Nanyang continent. Yes, that man was Yang Zixuan. Whether it was his appearance or the cold aura, he was definitely Yang Zixuan. How can it be? Jian Wushuang couldn't believe what he was seeing. After he left Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan on the Nanyang continent, he went to the Divine Land to adventure alone. After that, he had never heard news about them. But now, he had never imagined that he would see Yang Zixuan again on the monster continent, not to mention that Yang Zixuan was standing on the back of a huge bone dragon. Second brother, why are you here? Although he was confused, Jian Wushuang still glided toward Yang Zixuan and moved to step on the back of the bone dragon. However, the bone dragon, which was a monster king, snorted angrily, obviously reluctant to allow him to step on his back. Behave yourself. Yang Zixuan looked down coldly. As he stamped on the back of the bone dragon heavily, a commanding aura that contained endless majesty burst out of him. It swept out in all directions. This majestic aura, which was like an emperor reigning over the world, unconsciously made the crowd want to prostrate themselves and worship him. Around the battlefield, the human experts as well as the thousands of demonic beasts, were all deeply shocked when they felt the aura. Even crystal-armored Monster Emperor and Temple Master Black Spirit could not help looking at Yang Zixuan. Both of them felt great suppression from the majestic aura. The bone dragon under Yang Zixuan's feet trembled under the suppression and dared not to disobey anymore. Jian Wushuang mounted the bone dragon and stood next to Yang Zixuan, looking at him in surprise. When he was on the Nanyang continent, he had known that Yang Zixuan was predestined to be a warrior. But at that time the latter had just been in the Saint Realm. After a few years, Yang Zixuan's strength had obviously improved greatly. Even Jian Wushuang was affected by the terrifying aura suppression. Second brother, we haven't seen each other for so many years, but it seems like you've improved a lot, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. You can defeat a monster emperor now. If I hadn't made any progress, how could I be qualified to be your brother? Yang Zixuan said with an indifferent look. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and a smile appeared on his face. Let's not talk about it anymore. My master asked me to take you to see him. Come with me, Yang Zixuan said. Your master? Wine master? Jian Wushuang frowned. He remembered that Yang Zixuan was the disciple of Wine Master when he was on the Nanyang continent. No, another master. You'll know when you see him, Yang Zixuan said. Chapter 584, Killing Temple Master Iceberg. Chapter 584, Killing Temple Master Iceberg. All right, I'll go with you, Jian Wushuang said. But I have to settle something first. Jian Wushuang glanced at the experts in the human camp and finally focused on one person. Temple Master Iceberg. This old guy had tried to kill me several times. I wasn't strong enough before, but now things are different. Jian Wushuang said coldly, a faint killing intent rising from him. He suddenly moved and rushed towards Temple Master Iceberg. Temple Master Iceberg had an uneasy feeling. He had thought that crystal-armored Monster Emperor would kill Jian Wushuang, so he never thought that crystal-armored Monster Emperor would be defeated by Jian Wushuang. I'm in big trouble. I've offended Jian Wushuang too much. In the past he was too weak to do anything about it. But now his strength has soared so high that he can even defeat crystal-armored Monster Emperor. There's no way he'll spare my life, Temple Master Iceberg thought in a panic. He suddenly sensed that someone was looking at him with killing intent. Jian Wushuang was rushing toward him. No. The expression of Temple Master Iceberg greatly changed. Jian Wushuang, what do you want? Temple Master Iceberg exclaimed. What do I want? Don't you know? Jian Wushuang replied coldly as his mighty killing intent instantly surrounded Temple Master Iceberg. Temple Master Black Spirit, help! Help me! Temple Master Iceberg screamed while fleeing towards Temple Master Black Spirit at the same time. He knew without a doubt that it was impossible for him to compete with Jian Wushuang. The only one among the humans who could do that was Temple Master Black Spirit. Without hesitation he tried to grasp at that straw. Temple Master Black Spirit's face darkened slightly. She said, Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang halted to look at her, as he was quite respectful toward the latter. Temple Master Black Spirit, Jian Wushuang said solemnly. When I was a Saint Realm expert, I was forced by Temple Master Iceberg to have a life-death duel with Emperor Golden Snake. Then, on the Blood Moon Plain, Temple Master Iceberg even tried to kill me. I would have died if you hadn't arrived at that time. He has attempted to kill me several times. Can I get revenge? I hope you will allow me to have my revenge. Jian Wushuang explained sincerely. Hearing his words, Temple Master Iceberg roared impatiently before Temple Master Black Spirit could reply. Jian Wushuang, who do you think you are? After all, you're just an outsider while I'm one of the pillars of the human population on the monster continent. I have made great contributions to the human population, but what about you? What have you done for the Monster Exterminating League? Shut up. Temple Master Black Spirit lowered her voice and stared at Temple Master Iceberg with a hint of coldness in her eyes. She said, Temple Master Iceberg, you have indeed made a great contribution to the League. But Jian Wushuang is also a divine emperor. Not to mention that his strength qualifies him to be a temple master. Since you both belong to the League, I won't be partial to anyone. It's a fact that you have a personal grudge against Jian Wushuang and have attempted to kill him several times. His strength has improved and he wants to seek revenge, which is also reasonable. It's unfair to allow you to kill him and forbid him to kill you. Since your personal grudge can't be resolved, you can solve it through a life-death duel according to the rules of the League. Why? Hearing the words of Temple Master Black Spirit, Temple Master Iceberg's face darkened immediately. A life-death duel? I must fight a life-death duel with Jian Wushuang. Is she kidding? The experts of the human camp looked at Temple Master Iceberg with a pity in their eyes. But no one dared to question Temple Master Black Spirit's decision. She had indeed decided everything according to the rules of the League. The life-and-death grudge between Jian Wushuang and Temple Master Iceberg had to be solved through a life-death duel, and she was partial to no one. Thank you. Jian Wushuang looked at Temple Master Black Spirit gratefully and then turned to Temple Master Iceberg. Temple Master Iceberg, you'll definitely die today. Jian Wushuang roared as he rushed directly towards Temple Master Iceberg. The human experts watched them indifferently. No one was willing to attempt to stop Jian Wushuang. Run. Temple Master Iceberg did not want to have a life-death duel with Jian Wushuang at all. As he had witnessed the battle between Jian Wushuang and Crystal Armored Monster Emperor, he knew that he could not compete with either of them at all. There was not even a small chance that he would survive. Do you think you can escape? Jian Wushuang said coldly. As the mighty killing intent burst out of him and a vast blood river gushed forward like a surging tsunami. Now that Jian Wushuang had reached the Nine-Cloud Realm, the power of his realm was much stronger than before. Its momentum alone was infinitely stronger than before. The huge realm covered the entire battlefield in an instant. Temple Master Iceberg, who was trapped in the Blood River realm, felt like he had sunk into a mire. He struggled violently but was still greatly restrained and his speed was greatly diminished. This guy. Crystal Armored Monster Emperor, who had retreated to the horde of demonic beasts, frowned as he saw the crazy surging blood river in front of him. He could feel the power of the blood river. He was afraid that he would also be greatly suppressed if he was surrounded by it. But Jian Wushuang had not used his blood river realm when he fought with Crystal Armored Monster Emperor. Sword Emperor still kept some of his strength in reserve when he fought with me, Crystal Armored Monster Emperor thought. The Blood River realm violently suppressed Temple Master Iceberg and greatly lowered his speed. On the contrary, Jian Wushuang was able to move more flexibly in it and approach Temple Master Iceberg in the blink of an eye. Go to hell. Jian Wushuang attacked him directly. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 bright and beautiful sword moves, each of which was extremely powerful and shocking to all the ordinary Temple Masters. Temple Master Iceberg struggled to parry the sword moves with his long spear, but clang, clang. The first 2 successive collisions knocked his long spear away and the third sword light glided mercilessly past him. Temple Master Iceberg, one of the top 3 Temple Masters in the Monster Exterminating League, died on the spot. Chapter 585, Emperor Xiao. Chapter 585, Emperor Xiao. As they watched Temple Master Iceberg fail to block 3 moves from Jian Wushuang, every Temple Master felt that their heart skipped a beat. Temple Master Iceberg was regarded as being extremely strong among the Temple Masters. At the very least, he was much stronger than the ordinary Temple Masters. Nevertheless, Even he failed to block those 3 sword moves. If Jian Wushuang wanted to kill them, it was likely that he only needed 1 move. It was so incredible for a Cloud Realm expert to be so strong. After killing Temple Master Iceberg, Jian Wushuang bowed to Temple Master Black Spirit and remounted the huge bone dragon. "Let's go," Jian Wushuang said indifferently. Yang Zishuan faintly nodded his head. High up in the air, 10 more huge bone dragons turned around and flew toward the depths of the monster territory. Crystal-armored Monster Emperor also led his monster army away. This riot had finally come to an end. Countless human experts sighed with immense relief. After the battle, everyone remembered a name: Jian Wushuang, Sword Emperor. Sword Emperor never appeared again, but the way he defeated Crystal-armored Monster Emperor and killed Temple Master Iceberg would definitely become a legend on the monster continent that would be passed on for generations. In the depths of the monster territory, the bone dragons were flying forward rapidly. "Second brother, how did you get to the monster continent? Who is your master?" Jian Wushuang asked. He had never imagined he would see Yang Zishuan here, so he naturally had many doubts. "Calm down. After you meet my master, let's go meet Brother Wang Yuan," said Yang Zishuan. "Brother Wang Yuan is also here?" Jian Wushuang was surprised and pleased to hear that. "He is indeed, but his days are not as good as ours," Yang Zishuan said with a mysterious smile. These bone dragons quickly arrived at a peaceful valley. "Here we are," Yang Zishuan said. Jian Wushuang immediately looked down into the valley and saw a huge black castle. "A castle?" Jian Wushuang thought. He jumped down from the bone dragon with Yang Zishuan and went toward the black castle. It was very quiet. While following Yang Zishuan, Jian Wushuang eventually arrived in a garden with 2 men at a stone table. One of the men was sitting on a stone chair. He was a gray-robed, middle-aged man who had a handsome face and delicate short dark hair. In his dark eyes, which were as vast as the galaxy, lighting was faintly flickering. He was reading a thread-bound book. Once Jian Wushuang arrived in this garden, he was immediately attracted by the gray-robed man unconsciously. It seemed that he had a special magic power which drew all of Jian Wushuang's attention and made him neglect anything else. Focus. The gray-robed man seemed ordinary, but he was the focus of surrounding energy at all times. Jian Wushuang stood there and stared at the gray-robed man absent-mindedly. It wasn't until a while later that he recovered to himself. "What's this technique?" Jian Wushuang thought with unprecedented shock. After he recovered himself, he finally noticed the other man. He was surprised again as he asked, "Elder Di Jing?" Yes, this man was Di Jing, the man who saved his life in the Divine Land and revealed his great strength. But he was standing next to the gray-robed man with great respect, like a servant waiting on his master. Jian Wushuang gasped in astonishment once he figured out the identity of the gray-robed man. In this world, only one man was qualified to be treated with such deference by Di Jing. Lung Wushuang's father, the mysterious monarch from the Tang of the East. Second brother's master turned out to be him. Jian Wushuang was shocked. It was not the first time that he heard of this mysterious Tang monarch. When he was on the Nanyang continent, he had heard some stories about the mysterious Tang monarch. Then he was told by Di Jing that he was the 7th war god under the command of Emperor Xiao from the Tang of the East. Apparently, Emperor Xiao was the monarch of the Tang of the East on the Nanyang continent. "Master, I've brought Brother Wushuang here." Yang Zishuan stood in front of the gray-robed man and said respectfully. "Ah." The gray-robed man stopped reading and looked over at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang immediately felt that all of his secrets had been exposed by his gaze. The gray-robed man smiled and then said, "You two leave first. I have some things to discuss with this little boy." "Yes," Yang Zishuan replied and left with Di Jing. While passing by Jian Wushuang, Di Jing even winked at him. At this moment, only Jian Wushuang and the gray-robed man remained in the garden. The gray-robed middle-aged man looked at Jian Wushuang with great interest. As he slowly waved his hand, a chair condensed by special energy suddenly appeared behind Jian Wushuang. "Have a seat," he said. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath to suppress his shock and sat down on the chair. "Let me introduce myself. I'm Xiao Huan, but most people call me Emperor Xiao," the gray-robed man said slowly. "Greetings, Emperor Xiao," Jian Wushuang said respectfully. Anyone facing a stronger expert should be respectful. Jian Wushuang had been at the top of the ancient world in terms of his strength. Nevertheless, he understood that he was no different from a bug in front of Emperor Xiao. He could be killed countless times by Emperor Xiao as easily as brushing off some dust. In the face of such a super expert, Jian Wushuang had to be extremely respectful. "Boy, don't be nervous." Emperor Xiao smiled and said in a gentle voice, "By the way, I need to thank you." "Thank me?" Jian Wushuang was in a daze. "You removed part of the icy heart poison in my daughter's body, which relieved her pain a lot." "Of course I need to thank you," Emperor Xiao laughed. "It's no bother. She has also helped me several times," Jian Wushuang replied with dignity. Emperor Xiao raised his eyebrows and laughed. He asked, "I guess you don't know why I invited you here." "Yes." Jian Wushuang nodded. He was indeed full of doubts. "Rest assured. You'll understand when you see this," Emperor Xiao said and took out something. Chapter 586, The Second Grey Stone Bead. Chapter 586, The Second Grey Stone Bead. Jian Wushuang appeared more relaxed after the brief exchange. However, when Emperor Xiao produced that item, Jian Wushuang was stunned and his eyes goggled. This is... Jian Wushuang stared intently at the object. It was a grey stone bead. Jian Wushuang was very familiar with it because he had one inside his body. The bead inside his body had given him the heavenly creation skill and changed his life. Now, Emperor Xiao was showing him another grey stone bead which was exactly the same as his. The most important discovery was that when the second bead was produced, Jian Wushuang could sense the one inside his body resonating with it. Obviously, there was a strong connection between the grey stone beads. "Kid, you recognize this bead, right?" Emperor Xiao looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile and said slowly, "Heavenly creation skill." Jian Wushuang was taken aback. He raised his head and glanced at Emperor Xiao. Jian Wushuang realized that Emperor Xiao was aware of his big secret regarding the grey stone bead and the heavenly creation skill. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath and said solemnly, "Senior Emperor Xiao, this grey stone bead is the same as the one inside my body, and they resonate with each other. If I'm not wrong, the bead you have should have already recorded the remaining cultivation method of the heavenly creation skill." Jian Wushuang felt a hint of anticipation. The heavenly creation skill was a cultivation method that was absolutely against the natural order. But Jian Wushuang had known that his cultivation method was not complete. The highest level of his cultivation method was flying to the ninth heaven, and he was already on that level. But flying to the ninth heaven could only match ordinary warriors in the Cloud Realm. While Cloud Realm was considered an expert level in the Divine Land, it was merely average in the Monster Continent and just ordinary in the ancient world. There should be another level above the Cloud Realm. Like the three tribes in the Divine Land, the temple masters of the human population in the Monster Continent were at levels higher than the experts in the Cloud Realm. In the ancient world, the realm above the Cloud Realm was called the Skyscraping Realm. It was above 9 heaven. It was possible for an ordinary warrior to be in the Skyscraping Realm. Therefore, the heavenly creation skill should have another cultivation technique which was higher than flying to the ninth heaven. "You are right." Emperor Xiao confirmed Jian Wushuang's hypothesis. "My grey stone bead does have the remaining realm's cultivation technique of the heavenly creation skill." Having heard Emperor Xiao's confirmation, Jian Wushuang's excitement showed in his eyes as his gaze returned to the bead. "Kid, take it easy, I will give you the bead eventually but not now," Emperor Xiao said. Jian Wushuang tried hard to conceal his excitement. He took a deep breath and said, "Senior, may I ask if you created the heavenly creation skill?" Jian Wushuang had wanted to ask this question for a long time. He really wanted to know who had created the heavenly creation skill. It was impressive to have created this incredible heaven-defying cultivation method. As he considered Emperor Xiao's strength and his possession of the grey stone bead, Jian Wushuang realized that it was likely that he had created the heavenly creation skill. However, to his surprise, Emperor Xiao shook his head. "This heavenly creation skill is very occult, it's not something that I can make. It was created by one of my old friends." "Old friend?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. Emperor Xiao started to explain. "We're very close, like Demon and Pythias. His strength is a bit greater than mine. This heavenly creation skill was made by him. He passed away after creating the heavenly creation skill. What a pity." Before he died, he had separated the heavenly creation skill into 2 parts and recorded them into 2 grey stone beads. He gave me one and threw the other into the space. He told me to give this bead to the person who cultivates the heavenly creation skill in the 9 cloud realm. That person would be his successor. After he died, I followed the first gray stone bead to the space and arrived at the ancient world. While waiting here, I built a Tang of the East in the Nanyang continent. I've been here for thousands of years. Finally, you are here and you've used the heavenly creation skill to become an invincible warrior. Emperor Xiao looked at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang felt overwhelmed. He was well aware of the gray stone bead inside his body and the unique heavenly creation skill, but he had never expected that Emperor Xiao had been waiting for him for thousands of years in the ancient world. When you broke through the Saint Realm and became a venerable master, I had already noticed you. From that moment on, I watched you. I know all about your encounters and progress. Emperor Xiao smiled and continued, previously I thought that you would need more time to reach the Nine-Cloud Realm. To my surprise, you broke through it when you got the opportunity from God Hong in the Earth Core Palace. Jian Wushuang was shocked. Emperor Xiao knew about the opportunity in the 5th level of the Earth Core Palace. And he also knew God Hong. Jian Wushuang didn't know that Emperor Xiao's powers were godlike. He knew every single thing that Jian Wushuang did, including his encounter in the 5th level of the Earth Core Palace. Although God Hong's strength is average, the Immortality secret skill is still useful for you, but just barely, Emperor Xiao said. Hearing that, Jian Wushuang was inwardly surprised. God Hong in the 5th level of the Earth Core Palace had only displayed a fraction of his skills, but that had already terrified Jian Wushuang. The Immortality secret skill was an incredible secret skill which had filled Jian Wushuang with incredulity. But Emperor Xiao appeared to take God Hong's skills lightly, and he commented the Immortality secret skill was just passable. Since you are the successor of my old friend, I will try to help you. Before, I thought you would need more time to break through, so I prepared something for you. But I can save it since you've already succeeded. When the time is right, I will take you to join the Firmament Territory Feast, Emperor Xiao said. Chapter 587 Firmament Territory Feast. Chapter 587 Firmament Territory Feast. Firmament Territory Feast? Jian Wushuang asked quizzically, Senior, what is Firmament Territory Feast? Jian Wushuang had not heard of the Firmament Territory Feast. Firmament Territory Feast is a genius feast. Emperor Xiao began to explain. Kid, you should know that both my old friend and I are from the ancient world, Emperor Xiao said. Yes, Jian Wushuang nodded. Jian Wushuang knew that although the ancient world was vast, there were even larger swathes of land beyond the ancient world. People like Emperor Xiao, Lung Rushuang and Di Jing were all from another vast world. The ancient world is a huge world on this plane. Above it there is the eternal world, Emperor Xiao said. The eternal world? Jian Wushuang was intrigued. It was his first time hearing of the eternal world. The eternal world is enormous. You can't even imagine how huge its territory is. I've lived there for numerous years, but I still haven't fully explored the area, Emperor Xiao said. The eternal world is the core of the universe. Now, you are in the ancient world, which is only a tiny part of the eternal world. There is only one eternal world, but there are countless ancient worlds. Countless. Jian Wushuang was taken aback. You thought there's only one ancient world? Emperor Xiao laughed. He continued, there are lots of territories in the eternal world. This ancient world is under control of Firmament Territory. In the eternal world, Firmament Territory is considered a huge territory and it controls millions of ancient worlds. Even though the ancient worlds are controlled by the Firmament Territory, there isn't a direct route from the ancient world to the eternal world. In the ancient world token is the only one way for warriors like you to go to the eternal world. The ancient world token? Jian Wushuang was in a daze. Previously, he had received a message from Temple Master Black Spirit when he broke through the Earth Core Palace. It had told him that Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor and Temple Master Iceberg were very eager to steal his compass because it was related to an ancient world token. He hadn't known then the purpose of the ancient world token. Now he finally understood that the token was the only way to get into the eternal world. There are many sects in the Firmament Territory. Every 3 years, there is a Firmament Territory feast where geniuses gather, including experts from the skyscraping realm level. Warriors who have ancient world tokens in the ancient world can also join the genius feast, Emperor Xiao answered. However, there are limitations. There are only 5 ancient world tokens in one ancient world, meaning only 5 people can participate in the Firmament Territory feast. If they perform well at the feast, they can join a sect. Even if no sect accepts them, they can still choose to stay in the Firmament territory. That's it. Understanding dawned on Jian Wushuang. This explained why Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor and Temple Master Iceberg were trying so hard to get an Ancient World token. It was really very valuable. Jian Wushuang realized that the Ancient World would not appeal to skyscraping realm experts whose strength had already reached the top. The vast eternal world would become their new goal. As there were only 5 tokens and it was the only way to enter the eternal world, the value of the Ancient World tokens was tremendous. It would not be surprising for people in the skyscraping realm to war over an Ancient World token. It represented a chance to go to the vast eternal world, take part in the Firmament territory and join the sects. Emperor Xiao, you mentioned that you would take me to the Firmament territory feast? Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. Yes. Emperor Xiao nodded slightly. But I don't have an Ancient World token. Even I did, I am only a 9-cloud realm, so I don't think I'm qualified to join the Firmament territory feast? Jian Wushuang was in a daze. Yes, you don't have any Ancient World token now, but your ancestor has prepared one for you, Emperor Xiao answered with a smile. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked. His ancestor should be the Sword Ancestor. The Sword Ancestor had already got an Ancient World token for him? Well, Jian Wushuang contemplated the possibilities and soon he understood. No wonder the Sword Ancestor got attacked by millions of experts in the skyscraping realm level, Jian Wushuang sighed. When Jian Wushuang had been in the Divine Land, he had found out that the Sword Ancestor had been attacked by many skyscraping realm experts because he had a treasure with a big secret. Now he finally understood that the Sword Ancestor's treasure was an Ancient World token. The Ancient World token was the only treasure that could help him get into the Eternal World. Most importantly, there were only 5 in the Ancient World. Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor and Temple Master Iceberg's attitudes towards the Ancient World token showed how important the token was. Jian Wushuang only had a compass that was related to the Ancient World token, but Crystal-Armored Monster Emperor and Temple Master Iceberg already fought for it desperately. The Sword Ancestor had an actual Ancient World token, so this would definitely cause a stir when the news was exposed. As for your realm, you don't need to worry about it. The Firmament Territory Feast will start in another 3 years. During these years, you can go back to the Nanyang continent first and deal with all the remaining stuff in the Divine Land. After that you can follow me, I can help you break through the realm during these 3 years. I'll also help you to improve your strength to another new level, the Emperor Xiao answered with a confident attitude. On hearing this, Jian Wushuang's eyes lit up. You can leave now and find Dijing. He will show you the tunnel that can take you back to the Nanyang continent. Go there as fast as possible. If you get there late, I'm afraid the Sword Marquis mansion will be destroyed, the Emperor Xiao answered. What? Jian Wushuang was shocked. If he got there late, the Sword Marquis mansion would be destroyed. He knew that Emperor Xiao would not lie to him. Senior Emperor Xiao, I'm leaving now. Jian Wushuang was anxious. Without any hesitation he turned away and left. Chapter 588, Back to Nanyang. Chapter 588, Back to Nanyang. Having left the garden, Jian Wushuang saw Yang Zixuan and Di Jing waiting for him outside. Third brother, I've asked eldest brother Wang Yuan to come here. Let's have a good drink later, said Yang Zixuan. I'm afraid I can't, Jian Wushuang looked solemn. He shook his head and said, Senior Emperor Xiao has just informed me that Sword Marquis mansion is in danger. I have to get back immediately, otherwise, it will be destroyed. Really? Yang Zixuan frowned. Master is omnipotent. If he said that the Sword Marquis mansion is in danger, you should definitely get back quickly. Second brother, please let our eldest brother Wang Yuan know about this, Jian Wushuang answered anxiously. He looked at Di Jing and said, Senior Di Jing, I have to go back to the Nanyang continent now. Sure, follow me, Di Jing nodded and took Jian Wushuang to the castle. Soon after, Jian Wushuang arrived at a secret chamber which held a huge wormhole. You can get back to the Tang dynasty in the Nanyang continent through this wormhole, Di Jing said as he opened the wormhole for Jian Wushuang. Thanks, Jian Wushuang said and stepped into the wormhole. Waves reverberated in the space and soon Jian Wushuang disappeared. At the Nanyang continent, a territory of Tang dynasty. The Tang dynasty remained the same messy and violent slaughterous dynasty. At this moment, 2 people were fighting to the death beside a huge nameless mountain in the Tang dynasty. The 2 people emitted Saint Realm auras, reflecting their status as peak experts in the Nanyang continent. The fight between the two Saint Realm experts had attracted a large number of warriors, who stood around the battle and watched the fight intently. No one knew of the existence of a wormhole in the huge nameless mountain. At the moment, the wormhole was aglow with light. A short moment later, a human figure emerged from the wormhole and slowly walked forward along the tunnel. Soon this human figure came out from the cave. Nanyang continent. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, breathed the air and raised his head to look at the sky. Suddenly, die. A howl reverberated through the area. Jian Wushuang saw a huge blade light cut through the air. Its intended victim had been a Saint Realm elder, who had reacted quickly and avoided it. The power of the blade light had not subsided and continued to move towards Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang had only just arrived at the Nanyang continent and he was already being attacked. Although the attack was weak for someone at his level, it still made him a bit angry. Get out! Jian Wushuang bellowed in rage, his face purple with fury. His bellow sounded like a thunderclap that shocked the entire area and drowned out all other sounds. The blade light which had slashed towards him was immediately destroyed. The purple-haired man who had launched the blade light and the Saint Realm elder were attacked by the bellow. It confused them and made them bleed from their eyes, noses and mouths. Although they survived, both of them sustained serious injuries. The two powerful Saint Realms wilted like plants in winter. They collapsed on the ground and did not rise again. The ordinary warriors present covered their ears and most of them were shrieking in pain. Abruptly, silence fell. Countless terrified looks focused on Jian Wushuang. The two Saint Realms struggled to stand as they stared at Jian Wushuang in terror. They were well aware of the bellow's power. Jian Wushuang had shown them mercy. Otherwise, that bellow would have killed them. Who is he? His strength is so great that experts of the Saint Realm are infants compared to him. One bellow already carries enough power to seriously harm them. This is a real peak expert. The warriors present were in fervent discussion. Jian Wushuang glanced around with an icy look and realized that the two Saint Realms had been fighting. They had not noticed his arrival, which resulted in him being inadvertently attacked. With a better understanding of the situation, his anger dissipated. He waved his hand and gave an elixir to each of the Saint Realms. Following this, there was a flash of flowing light and Jian Wushuang disappeared completely. This speed. So fast. Who the hell is he? The Saint Realms stared at the elixirs with widened eyes. They hesitated for a moment, then swallowed the elixirs. Soon they noticed that their injuries were healed. The speed of recovery was rapid and it took only a short time for them to return to their previous conditions. In fact, they were at their peak conditions or perhaps even better than that. The terrifying skills, incredible speed and the magic elixir were clear evidence that the two Saint Realms had met a superior. Having left the mountain, Jian Wushuang flew to the Sword Marquis mansion. Knowing that the Sword Marquis mansion was in danger, he did not dare to tarry. The Sword Marquis mansion in the Tang dynasty was a considerable distance from the Tianzong dynasty. However, Jian Wushuang would be able to get there in less than 1 hour with his speed if he did not stop during his journey. The Sword Marquis mansion, Bahui Commandery, Tianyan province in the Tianzong dynasty. The Sword Marquis mansion had gained fame in the Nanyang continent when it had become common knowledge that Jian Wushuang, a peerless genius, hailed from the mansion. While the mansion had not produced experts in the last couple of years, it had the full support of the royal family from the Tianzong dynasty and the tacit support of the alchemy school. Its overall strength was still much greater than it had been and it had become the top power in the Tianzong dynasty. The Sword Marquis mansion had been thriving, but that had changed dramatically a few days ago. A powerful, mysterious expert had broken into the Sword Marquis mansion and captured all its clansmen. Chapter 589 Jian Wushuang, where are you? Chapter 589, Jian Wushuang, where are you? At Sword Marquis mansion, hundreds of clansmen stood on the huge drill ground. Jian Xinhong, the mansion master of the Sword Marquis mansion, led the elder. A beautiful woman named Jian Menger stood among the crowd. Everyone present shared the same pale expressions at the moment. Looks of fear, anger and hatred were directed towards a wicked man who sat on a stage at the drill ground. The wicked man was clothed in a scarlet robe and had a demonic appearance. He flew through the clansmen one by one with a playful smile. Jian Xinhong, 3 days have already passed, have you decided? The scarlet-robed man stared at Jian Wushuang and his voice echoed coldly through the drill ground. Tell me where the Ancestor's land is. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. He raised his head, glanced at the man and slowly shook his head. Solemnly he answered, I don't know. You don't know? The scarlet-robed man gave him a glacial look. Boom. A monstrous aura rose and rushed towards Jian Wushuang. This aura was only on the 8-cloud realm level, but for Jian Wushuang, who only just broken through the Void realm, it was overwhelming. The scarlet-robed man had only emitted a little aura, but it was already powerful enough to make Jian Wushuang suffer. Plop. Jian Wushuang was unable to control the balance of his body. Unwillingly, he knelt in front of the scarlet-robed man and bowed his head low. His mouth was full of blood and he could sense that his organs had shifted from the effects of the aura. Devil. You are a devil. Bastard. His clansmen were enraged when they witnessed their master suffer the humiliation. However, reason told them that they had to endure the shame. They could not fight him. Even if all the experts of the Sword Marquis mansion fought him as one, they wouldn't be able to hurt the scarlet-robed wicked man at all. Jian Wushuang. The scarlet-robed man had started to speak in a cold voice. Sword Marquis mansion is the only descendant of the bloodline of the Sword Ancestor. As the mansion master, you really don't know where the Ancestor's land is? Jian Wushuang remained in his kneeling position with his forehead touching the ground. He stuttered, I indeed don't know, but even if I do, I will never ever tell you. Really? You really have a backbone? The scarlet-robed man sneered. In the next moment, the oppressive aura surged. This time, Jian Wushuang lay flat on the ground and blood flowed profusely from his pores. Soon he turned into a blood person and he lost consciousness from the excruciating pain. Rubbish. Are you really the descendant of the Sword Ancestor? I think you are just like a worm. The scarlet-robed man laughed coldly. He still had not exerted all of his aura. Although Jian Wushuang was unconscious, he was still alive. As the mansion master of the Sword Marquis mansion, he would be the only one who knew the whereabouts of the Ancestor's land. That was why the wicked man had not killed him. You, the scarlet-robed man pointed at an elder and demanded, tell me where the Ancestor's land is. I don't know, the elder gritted his teeth and shook his head. As soon as the elder's words died, the scarlet-robed wicked man waved his hand and a greenish-black viper flew out. This viper was a greenish-black long whip with hundreds of sharp greenish-black scales on its surface. As the scarlet-robed man waved, the whip hit the elder. The elder screamed and blood spurted from his mouth. The impact threw the elder against a stone wall at the edge of the drill ground. No one knew if he was still alive. Elder Ing. The clansman screamed. Bastard, I am going to kill you. A burly clansman had yelled out. He waved his giant axe and slashed violently towards the scarlet-robed man. Don't do it. The people around him tried to stop him, but it was too late. As soon as the clansman started his charge, the scarlet-robed wicked man struck as well. Chi. The greenish-black long whip struck through the clansman's heart and killed him instantly. No. A shrill cry issued from the crowd, but the burly man had been killed. You come here. The scarlet-robed man pointed to Jian Wushuang. Didn't you hear me? The scarlet-robed wicked man demanded. Jian Wushuang trembled and raised her head. Her pretty face was filled with panic, anger, despair and madness. She struggled to move forward 3 steps then stopped. The scarlet-robed man stared at Jian Wushuang. He had licked his lips when he saw her beauty. He ordered, take off your clothes. Jian Wushuang raised her head in horror. Her eyes reflected her roiling emotions. The scarlet-robed man lost his patience when he saw her hesitate. He waved the greenish-black long whip, which flew towards a female toddler standing behind Jian Wushuang. As the whip passed over the girl's right hand, her arm was cut off. Wow! The girl shrieked in pain. Linger. Jian Wushuang stared at the man in fury. That girl was her daughter. Take off your clothes, otherwise I'll cut her head off. The scarlet-robed man had a cruel expression on his face. I will do it. Jian Wushuang had a painful smile on her face. The anger, panic and madness had vanished, replaced by deep despair. Her hands slowly pulled her clothes down. Her eyes were hollow. She was like a puppet. However, a figure suddenly appeared in her mind. That figure had haunted her for years. As she plunged into despair, she thought about this person. She finally broke down in despair. Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. You, where are you? Where the hell are you? Chapter 590 Return. Chapter 590, Return. Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. Where are you? Where the hell are you? The forlorn and shrill voice reverberated through the area. Jian Ming'er had cried Jian Wushuang 3 times until her voice became hoarse. She had hated him to the core, but now she wished that he would appear to save them as he had done many times before in the Nanyang continent. Besides Jian Ming'er, many clansmen here were also fervently crying a name in their hearts. This name was none other than Jian Wushuang. He was their pride and joy and regarded as a legend even in the entire Nanyang continent. Everyone hoped that this legend would show up to protect them. However, nothing happened even after Jian Ming'er's voice had faded. Jian Wushuang had not appeared. Despair. All the clansmen fell into despair. On the platform, the scarlet-robed man sneered as he heard Jian Ming'er's cries. He started to laugh after the cries had stopped. Ah, Jian Wushuang? You're thinking of a loser who was forced to escape from the divine land. Ah, ridiculous, very ridiculous. His manic laughter mocked Jian Ming'er. The scarlet-robed man was scornful of Jian Wushuang. He was Fire Ghost, one of the 72 Marquises in the divine land. He was famous for his evil, so he had the nickname Evil Marquis. Of course, he was very powerful. He was known as the #1 Marquis among the 72 Marquises. His battle strength was comparable to the 9 sovereigns. A Marquis of his status would not care about an escapee who was hunted by numerous skyscraping realm experts. Idiots. Fire Ghost sneered as his laughter continued to reverberate. There were many experts outside the Sword Marquis mansion. Some of them came from the alchemy school, some were from the imperial house of the Tianzong dynasty. Their faces fell when they heard his laughter. I've heard of Evil Marquis. He is a supreme expert in the vast divine land. Now that he's taken Sword Marquis Mansion as his target, it's impossible for them to survive, a white-haired elder said. Upon hearing this, Wang Yan Dishi and Hong Shuzi frowned. Jian Wushuang had requested them to help him take care of Sword Marquis Mansion, and they had fulfilled their promises. However, even the white-haired elder who was at the Cloud Realm could do nothing against the evil Marquis Fire Ghost. So what were they able to do? As for Jian Wushuang, I've never heard of him in the divine land. I'm afraid that he is not very famous and might not be very powerful. Even if he returns, it would be impossible for him to fight the evil Marquis. In that case, there is nothing we can do? Sect Master of the Alchemy School sighed as he shook his head. Silence descended on the drill ground in Sword Marquis Mansion. All the clansmen were in complete despair. A tragic smile appeared on Jian Ming'er's face. She slowly took off her clothes, revealing her pink underwear. Go on. Fire Ghost stared at the girl with evil eyes. Jian Ming'er's hands shivered slightly as she slowly stretched her fingers to the silk ribbon on her underwear. Just as she was about to take off her last piece of clothing, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. Jian Ming'er stopped. She had been in a daze. Now she felt a surge of hope. You finally came? Jian Ming'er murmured. Her clansmen who had felt hopeless brightened up when they saw the figure appear. The grim drill ground was suddenly infused with vitality and hope. Fire Ghost perceived the great change. He was surprised that they were staring at something behind him, so he turned to have a look. What? Fire Ghost was shocked when he saw the figure in front of him. He had not been aware that the man had stood behind him for a while. You. Fire Ghost stared at this man. The man was dressed in a black robe and had a long sword on his back. His beautiful face shone with a flicker of coldness. Overwhelming killing intent radiated from him. Although it had not erupted, his killing intent was strong enough to shake Fire Ghost. If I'm right, you're the evil Marquis, the #1 Marquis in the divine land? Jian Wushuang said in an icy voice. He had hurriedly returned after being informed by Emperor Xiao that Sword Marquis Mansion was in trouble. Having witnessed the scene in front of him, he was absolutely furious. He had rarely been as furious as this. Sword Marquis Mansion was his root. It was the place where he had been born and raised. His clansmen were his family. Fire Ghost was trampling on his family. His anger blazed. You are Jian Wushuang. Fire Ghost recognized him. You dare to come back. Jian Wushuang did not respond but glared at Fire Ghost. The next moment, his killing intent peaked and surged towards Fire Ghost with the force of a tsunami. The terrifying killing intent which contained slaughter Dao instantly oppressed Fire Ghost. The force behind the attack felt like it came from a skyscraping realm expert. Puh. A huge pit suddenly appeared on the ground. Fire Ghost lay in the pit as the sound of breaking bones rang out in succession. Chapter 591 Blood Bladesman. Chapter 591, Blood Bladesman. No, impossible. Fire Ghost lay prostrate in the pit. The terrifying killing intent had suppressed him and shattered his bones. Blood poured profusely from his mouth. His face was red and there was unprecedented shock in his eyes. The oppression of the killing intent was similar to aura oppression. Just now he had forced Jian Wushuang to fall and faint by using aura oppression. He was able to do this because he was much more powerful than Jian Wushuang. Now this young man had just used killing intent to suppress him. It had been strong enough to cause him to fall and his bones to crack. How was that possible? Even the sovereigns or three ancestors were not as strong as this. Jian Wushuang, who had been forced to flee from the divine land, and who he held in contempt, had managed to perform this impossible feat. Fire Ghost was dumbfounded, but he suddenly had a strong desire to survive. Blood Bladesman. Master Blood Bladesman. Help me, please come help me, Fire Ghost roared. He knew that Blood Bladesman was hidden nearby and that he would come over if he noticed something happening here. If Blood Bladesman came, he would still have an opportunity to survive. The drill ground turned deathly silent. The clansmen looked at Jian Wushuang as they trembled in excitement. They had been yelling his name in their hearts. Their hero had finally shown up and his strength did not disappoint. Fire Ghost was a devil and very powerful, but compared to Jian Wushuang he was as weak as an infant. Jian Wushuang had not even displayed any of his moves. He had merely used aura oppression on the evil Marquis to overcome him. What terrifying strength! What a frightening skill! How is this possible? Experts from the alchemy school and the imperial house of the Tianzong dynasty, and even the white-haired elder who had just returned from the divine land, widened their eyes in shock. This is the evil Marquis who is the strongest among the 72 Marquises. Sovereigns could defeat him, but they won't be able to do so using aura alone. Even if the legendary three ancestors show up, they might not have such a power. Under everyone's gazes, Jian Wushuang's gaze was steely as his killing intent violently pressed on Fire Ghost. Evil Marquis, Jian Wushuang said in a frosty tone, you're still hoping that Blood Bladesman will come to your aid, right? Fire Ghost was unable to move or speak under the oppression. It's a pity, Jian Wushuang looked at Fire Ghost while shaking his head. You won't have such an opportunity. Jian Wushuang raised his foot and stomped on his enemy's head. The terrifying power landed squarely on the panic-stricken evil Marquis. In the next moment, his head shattered into pieces. The famous evil Marquis, the #1 expert of the 72 Marquises, died. He had trampled on the clansmen from Sword Marquis Mansion. Now he had become a corpse. Jian Wushuang wore a grim expression as he surveyed the area. Blood Bladesman, you've been watching for so long. It's time you revealed yourself. The moment Jian Wushuang finished his words, a figure flashed and appeared on the drill ground. The figure was a skinny elder who was as scruffy as a beggar and had a hint of evil in his eyes. Blood Bladesman was one of the skyscraping realm experts who had forced Jian Wushuang to escape from the divine land. He was also one of the murderers responsible for the death of the Sword Ancestor. Hey, I came here to try my luck. I wondered whether I'll be able to find the cave mansion Sword Ancestor left. It seems that I made the right decision. Blood Bladesman had an evil smile on his face. Jian Wushuang, those old guys have been looking for you. They didn't expect that you've quietly returned. That's fine. Since you're back, I don't need to expend too much energy searching for Sword Ancestor Cave Mansion. Blood Bladesman stared with the young man, not concealing his surprise and delight. He had come to the Nanyang continent to get the location of Ancestor's land from the clansmen in Sword Marquis Mansion. He had let evil Marquis torture the clansmen for 3 days, but he had not obtained what he sought. He had been disappointed and ready to give up, but Jian Wushuang had appeared. How could he not be happy? Tell me. Where is the cave mansion? I'll spare your life if you tell me, Blood Bladesman said in an evil tone. Blood Bladesman, are you done with your nonsense? Jian Wushuang glanced at him, expressionless. Bladesman sneered. Boy, don't think you're powerful just because you've killed Fire Ghost. That's right. Your killing intent is strong. If I'm not wrong, you've comprehended Slaughter Dao, but that's only enough to deal with some Cloud Realm experts. It's useless against me. Stop talking. Jian Wushuang shook his head. He was tired of this elder's nonsense. His heart-killing sword appeared in his hand. He had been able to kill Fire Ghost with ease, but he now faced Bladesman, a real skyscraping realm expert. Jian Wushuang would need to use his weapon if he wanted to kill the elder. His 330 feet golden sword Soul Phantom suddenly appeared behind him. The heart-killing sword lashed out. The seventh move of the heart-killing sword technique, Star River. The brilliant strike provided the only light in the entire area as it pierced through the void and appeared in front of Bladesman. Its power erupted. Chapter 592 Bladesman's Killing Move. Chapter 592 Bladesman's Killing Move. Seeing his opponent showing his move, Bladesman sneered. You are not worried that your sword Marquis mansion will disappear if we fight in there? A fight between two powerful experts would cause a great commotion. They all had the battle strength of the skyscraping realm. If they had an all-out fight, the sword Marquis mansion would not be strong enough to sustain it. Moreover, the two Saint Realm experts were unable to display their full strength in such a small place like the sword Marquis mansion. However, Jian Wushuang was eager to battle and looked as if he was not worried about it at all. You won't have such an opportunity. Jian Wushuang's frosty voice resounded through the area. The power of his sword shadow fully erupted into action. Boom. The space was split as his sword shadow appeared in front of Bladesman. What? Bladesman, who had remained calm and composed, was suddenly shocked by this sword shadow. He felt its terrifying power and immediately reacted. And the moment a blood-red saber appeared in his hand, he brandished it without hesitation. This attack contained a power that was strong enough to destroy the world. The cold and dazzling saber light lashed out. The two strikes smashed into each other. Bang! A deep sound of their impact resounded, which shook Bladesman. How is that possible? Bladesman looked at his hands, which were bleeding. The sharp pain rendered him unable to hold his blood-red saber. Had his saber been knocked away from just one attack? Their initial confrontation produced inconceivable power waves that were strong enough to ruin the entire Sword Marquis mansion. However, Jian Wushuang radiated a blast of terrifying aura to cover up the power waves. The power waves erupted, but no spectator got hurt as Jian Wushuang's aura had sustained it. It's impossible. Bladesman was dumbfounded and could not believe it. How powerful this young man was. Even the sword ancestor at his peak might have been inferior to him. It was amazing that Jian Wushuang could have made such rapid progress in such a short period of time. It had been less than a year since he was forced to leave the Divine Land. But now he had gotten stronger than the sword ancestor. Go to hell. Jian Wushuang ignored his opponent's shock and attacked him again. Bladesman went pale, a sense of crisis rising in his heart. You want me to die? You go first. Bladesman suddenly roared as he waved his hand. A blood shadow flew across the void. Jian Wushuang recognized it the moment it dashed out. It was a sharp scarlet dagger and was quickly approaching. It moved so fast that it would be difficult for Jian Wushuang to avoid this attack. Nevertheless, he did not intend to dodge it. Upon seeing this, Bladesman showed a frosty smile. Die. Bladesman cried, his face twisting with ferocity. He was famous for the blood saber. Many people thought his blood saber was the blood-red saber that he used. Actually, he was called Bladesman because of this moving scarlet dagger. That dagger was his real killing move. He had used it to kill many powerful opponents since he started his cultivation. He had saved the day many times by using it, so he thought it would also help him this time. This scarlet dagger with terrifying power crashed into Jian Wushuang. It pricked his clothes and landed on his chest, leaving just a light white mark there. The smile on Bladesman's face froze at once. My scarlet dagger has only left a white mark on the young man's chest. It didn't prick his skin? Bladesman was petrified. At this point, the cold sword shadow that Jian Wushuang displayed charged smoothly and pierced Bladesman's body. This skyscraping realm expert, who had a good reputation in the ancient world, died. Jian Wushuang stood on the ground as he touched that white mark on his chest, with a hint of scorn flashing through his eyes. Bladesman's powerful killing move was able to kill skyscraping realm experts who came from the Divine Land or other plane worlds and did not have powerful bodies. However, under the attack of his killing move, skyscraping realm experts in the Monster Continent, like the 33 Temple Masters from the Monster Exterminating League, could be seriously injured, but even the weakest would not die. Human warriors from the Monster Continent were more powerful than warriors from the other plane worlds. Jian Wushuang had a terrifying body, so he was not hurt by Bladesman's killing move. He walked toward Bladesman and waved his hand to take the interspatial ring, blood-red saber and scarlet dagger. Then he said while looking downward, "Bladesman, don't worry. You are just the first one. It won't take long for someone to accompany you." Those skyscraping realm experts who had attacked the Sword Ancestor and forced me to flee from the Divine Land, I'll kill them all. And Su Ming, I won't forget him. I'll get my revenge on all of them one by one. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Numerous clansmen were staring at Jian Wushuang in admiration. This legend in their eyes had appeared at a critical moment and killed all the enemies with his heaven-defying strength. He had not disappointed them indeed. At this point, Jian Wushuang turned to look at his clansmen. The first one that he saw was Jian Meng'er. He calmly looked at Jian Meng'er, who wore a complicated expression on her face. Then he waved his hand and threw an elixir to her. Chapter 593 Returning to the Ancestor's Land. Chapter 593 Returning to the Ancestor's Land. This elixir can regenerate broken limbs. Give it to the little girl. Jian Meng'er was stunned. Then she took the elixir and, being surprised and delighted, walked toward the little girl whose arm had been cut off by Fire Ghost. "Lin, take it. Be quick." Jian Meng'er's voice trembled as she spoke. The little girl was crying in pain. And after she swallowed the elixir, her severed arm started regrowing again. She quickly made a full recovery. Upon seeing this, Jian Meng'er cried out joyfully as she gratefully looked at her savior. Jian Wushuang gave her a glance but said nothing, then he went over to Jian Xinhong. Jian Xinhong, who had fainted because of the aura suppression, had still not regained consciousness. Jian Wushuang bent over and gave Jian Xinhong an elixir that emitted a light scent. He had many high-level elixirs, which were his trophies from the Divine Land and Monster Continent. Jian Xinhong did not wake up, but he looked better after taking the elixir. Jian Wushuang felt relieved and then stood up, finding his clansmen walking toward him and gazing at him in admiration. He breathed deeply and said solemnly, "Everyone, I'm back." Jian Wushuang quickly helped the Sword Marquis mansion turn the corner and recover to a normal condition. Although Fire Ghost had tortured those clansmen for several days, only a few of them got killed, so the Sword Marquis mansion did not suffer great losses. One day later, Jian Xinhong woke up. Jian Wushuang sat in the front of the meeting hall accompanied by Jian Xinhong, who looked a bit pale, while those elders including Jian Meng'er stood below. Besides them, experts from the alchemy school, Di Shi and Hong Shuzi were also present at the meeting. "My little friend Wushuang, when you left you asked me to take care of the Sword Marquis mansion, but today, alas, I'm sorry." Hong Shuzi sighed. "I'm also sorry," said the sect master of the alchemy school, Wang Yan. "2 days ago, our alchemy school received the news that the Sword Marquis mansion was in trouble, so I immediately sent a Saint Realm expert here, but I didn't expect that the enemy would be so powerful. He killed my elder in just a single move." It was the truth. A Saint Realm expert from the alchemy school had tried to protect the Sword Marquis mansion, but he was killed by Fire Ghost with only one move. "Everyone, regarding this matter, I understand. Fire Ghost was the supreme expert in the Divine Land. It's understandable that you were unable to resist him," Jian Wushuang said without a hint of blame in his tone. Upon hearing this, Wang Yan, Hong Shuzi, and the other experts felt relieved. They had been afraid that Jian Wushuang would vent his anger on them, but obviously Jian Wushuang was not such a person. "My little friend, Wushuang," Fire Ghost had forced those clansmen to tell him the location of the Ancestor's land. "It seems that many people have been targeting the Ancestor's land," said a white-haired elder who had just returned from the Divine Land. "Right, there are many experts and they're also supreme beings. But don't worry," Jian Wushuang continued in an icy voice, "I'll go to the Divine Land and kill them all." Jian Wushuang was filled with killing intent. He was remembering all of those experts who had forced him to flee. After staying there for a day, Jian Wushuang was about to leave. Mansion Master, I'll leave my blood puppet in the Sword Marquis mansion. If anyone attacks our mansion, you can use this blood puppet to repel them. He had received this blood puppet from the Ancestor's land. When he had just arrived at the Divine Land, the blood puppet had greatly helped him and had saved him several times. Nevertheless, with the improvement of his strength, the blood puppet became almost no use to him. Jian Wushuang was easily able to kill an 8-cloud realm expert or a sovereign, or even a skyscraping realm expert, so there was no need for him to use this blood puppet. It could be a good choice to let this blood puppet be the trump card of the Sword Marquis mansion. Jian Wushuang also gave Jian Xinhong many blood gems, which were enough to activate the blood puppet many times. After everything was arranged well, Jian Wushuang set off. Jian Wushuang did not return to the Divine Land, but instead, he went to the Ancestor's land. The abyss in the innumerable huge mountains. Although Jian Wushuang had been here many times, he had never perceived anything special and only felt that the abyss was mysterious because he had been weak at that time. However, this time he was able to see it through with only one glance. This abyss is actually a formation? Jian Wushuang was astonished, but he immediately realized that this formation was aimed at avoiding the exploration from other experts. This formation is exquisite. If I had not visited here several times and learned its secret, I would not have found out that the Sword Ancestor's cave mansion was in the abyss. I might have thought that it's only an ordinary dangerous place. Jian Wushuang sighed. The skyscraping realm experts who killed the Sword Ancestor almost turned the plain world over searching for the Sword Ancestor cave mansion. They had also launched a search in the Nanyang continent, but they gained nothing because of the protection of this formation. Jian Wushuang stepped into the abyss without a second thought. The moment he landed on the Ancestor's land, the two puppet fighters, Jin Ling and Mu Shan, walked over. Jian Wushuang, this is... Jin Ling and Mu Shan stared at Jian Wushuang with an odd expression. They could tell that compared to several years ago, Jian Wushuang had greatly changed. They were not clear about how many changes that he had made, but they knew that the young man was now much more powerful than before. Chapter 594, The Last Test. Chapter 594, The Last Test. It's been many years since we met last. How are you? Jian Wushuang asked in a toneless voice. Jian Wushuang, it hasn't been that long. You're already back from the Divine Land? Jin Ling responded with a hint of surprise. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He had not only returned from the Divine Land, he had even traveled to the Monster Continent. I come to take the third test, Jian Wushuang said. There were 3 tests in the Ancestor's land and he had passed the second test before he left the Nanyang continent, so only the third test remained. The third test is difficult, but looking at you, you're pretty confident, right? Jin Ling stared at Jian Wushuang curiously. A little bit. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He was now even stronger than Sword Ancestor, who had been at his peak. Therefore he was capable of passing all the tests Sword Ancestor left. Follow me. Jin Ling and Mu Shan led the way, quickly arriving at the deepest part of the Ancestor's land. A fathomless long tunnel appeared in front of Jian Wushuang, with a lilac restriction covering its entrance. This restriction was extraordinarily powerful. Anyone that wanted to enter the tunnel had to break it. This tunnel is connected to the real core of the Ancestor's land, where Sword Ancestor left his things. Jin Ling said, as for the third test, it should be this restriction, but I'm not sure about it. After all, Mu Shan and I are unable to enter this tunnel, so we don't know if there are other tests inside. Really? Jian Wushuang frowned as he looked over at the lilac restriction. He started to approach it. Jian Wushuang, this restriction is quite powerful. It has an amazing defensive and offensive power. You should be careful. Jin Ling, who was still in the process of speaking, was suddenly stunned. Mu Shan was also petrified. They watched as Jian Wushuang casually punched the restriction. As for the result, the powerful restriction instantly collapsed in front of their eyes. He smashed the restriction with a casual punch. Is it really that easy? Both Jin Ling and Mu Shan cried in shock. As far as they knew, if an expert wanted to break the restriction, he had to at least reach the sovereign level. Sovereigns were supreme experts in the Divine Land. Jian Wushuang must be stronger than a sovereign since he broke the restriction with a single punch. It's amazing for Jian Wushuang to have made such rapid progress in such a short period of time. So fast. Jin Ling could not hold back her surprise. They had witnessed Jian Wushuang grow up step by step. When he initially arrived here, Jian Wushuang was so weak that he was not even qualified to do the first test. Now, after a dozen years had passed, his strength had reached an incredible level. The third test is a piece of cake, Jian Wushuang said with a faint smile. He had narrowly escaped death when he was taking the first and second test. However, it was too easy for him to pass the third test. What will you do, wait for me or go inside with me? Jian Wushuang turned to look at the two puppet fighters. We'll stay here and wait for you, Jinling replied. Jian Wushuang shrugged his shoulders and walked inside. The dark tunnel was not long, so it wasn't long before a shabby secret chamber came into view. Jian Wushuang stepped into the secret chamber and immediately saw two tokens on the table in the front of the chamber. Other than the two tokens, there was nothing in there. Jian Wushuang approached while observing the tokens. The first one was a gold token which radiated magic power in waves. It looked very mysterious in his eyes. Two gilded words were carved on it, Ancient World. The Ancient World token. Jian Wushuang immediately understood. Emperor Xiao had said that the Sword Ancestor had prepared an Ancient World token for him. It should be this one. This is the Ancient World token. Jian Wushuang picked up the gold token and studied it for a while, but he could not figure it out. All he knew was that the power surrounding the token was similar to space waves. Countless skyscraping realm experts all desire this Ancient World token. Jian Wushuang sighed while shaking his head. Because of it, the Sword Ancestor had been hunted by so many skyscraping realm experts and eventually died. Now Jian Wushuang had received this Ancient World token that the Sword Ancestor left. It could be said that the Sword Ancestor sacrificed himself to give the young man an opportunity. Jian Wushuang put this Ancient World token into his interspatial ring and then looked at the second token. It was an ordinary message token. Jian Wushuang smashed it and a message came out. I'm Jian Chen. Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised, but he immediately realized that this token contained some information Sword Ancestor left. Jian Wushuang began listening carefully. I was born aloof and proud, so I would rather die than surrender to my enemies. I accidentally received an Ancient World token, but the news leaked out, causing numerous skyscraping realm experts to chase. Haha, they wanted me to hand over the Ancient World token. However, I'd rather die or destroy the Ancient World token than give it to them. Sword Ancestor told his story and left several words for his descendants. He really was quite stubborn. Jian Wushuang said to himself. Sword Ancestor mentioned that he was too obstinate. Even when he was seriously injured and unable to fight back against the numerous skyscraping realm experts, he would rather destroy the Ancient World token than hand it over. As a result, he was killed by those skyscraping realm experts. If he had not been so stubborn, he would not have been killed. That's his nature. Jian Wushuang sighed as he shook his head. Sword Ancestor, don't worry. As for those people who murdered you, I'll kill them all. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, slightly bowed to space in front of him, and then left. Chapter 595, Marquis Lanyue. Chapter 595, Marquis Lanyue. Jian Wushuang left the Ancestor's land after obtaining the Ancient World token. Next. It's time to go to the Divine Land. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. However, there were no wormholes connecting the Nanyang continent to the Divine Land, so Jian Wushuang had to travel there on foot. The first time he went, it had taken him a year to travel to the Divine Land. He was weak at that time, so he walked slowly, not to mention that practicing on his way to the Divine Land had also delayed him. But now he had become much more powerful. It only took him several days to arrive at the Divine Land. There was an exquisite pavilion named the Heaven Secret Pavilion. It had a good reputation in the Divine Land because it was said that 4 marquises and a sovereign guarded it. The Heaven Secret Pavilion was known for being the #1 intelligence organization. In a secret chamber of the Heaven Secret Pavilion, a black-robed elder respectfully handed Jian Wushuang a pile of documents that were filled with information. Sir, this is what you need. Jian Wushuang paid with raw gems and then flipped through it by himself. It provided detailed information about what had happened in the Divine Land during the period while he was gone, including the rise and fall of experts. It also contained some information on the 3 ancestors. Jian Wushuang kept reading. The greatest change in the Divine Land was that a 4th ancestor appeared. It was Su Ming. Su Ming had fought with Blind Emperor. As a result, he made a breakthrough to the skyscraping realm at a critical moment and killed Blind Emperor. Since he had reached the skyscraping realm, he was qualified to become an ancestor. He should have been named Sword Ancestor, but there had been a Sword Ancestor in the Divine Land, so Su Ming had to use another title, Sword Demon. Currently, the 4 ancestors were the Holy Ancestor, the Spirit Ancestor, the Stone Ancestor and the Demon Ancestor. They were the topmost existences in the Divine Land. The number of sovereigns had also lessened to 8 because of Su Ming's promotion. Some small changes had occurred among the marquises while Jian Wushuang was away, but there were still 72 marquises in the Divine Land. Jian Wushuang glanced through the information about the marquises, but he did not pay them any mind until he came across a name that amazed him, Marquis Lanyue. Marquis Lanyue? Jian Wushuang carefully read her information. After a while, a meaningful smile grew on his face. That little girl has grown a lot over the last few years. On a magnificent mountain range stood a towering mansion, which was the residence of Marquis Lanyue, one of the 72 marquises. As a peerless genius, she had rapidly risen to become a marquis over the last few years. It was said that Marquis Lanyue was just 30 years old. She had amazing talent when she was a child, but she had been afflicted by witch poison for several years. Ever since she had been detoxified, her talent had started to recover and she had improved at an unbelievable speed. Currently, she had made a breakthrough from a Saint Realm expert to a famous marquis. On the empty ground of this mansion, a cyan-dressed lady was practicing her swordsmanship alone. She looked gorgeous, possessing both a heroic spirit and a sexy figure while radiating a peerless charm. However, the sword moves she displayed were swift and powerful. Each sword shadow she launched was as fast as lightning and strong enough to kill an ordinary lord. This cyan-dressed lady was Marquis Lanyue. Shua. The cold streak of sword light lashed out and pierced the air before her, causing sword essence waves to spread out. Nice. A toneless voice came from nearby. Marquis Lanyue was a bit surprised as she looked over at the source. When she saw the black-robed youth with a long sword on his back staring at her, her pretty eyes suddenly bulged wide. Master? Marquis Lanyue cried out, looking surprised and delighted. You've already become a marquis but you still remember me? Jian Wushuang replied with a faint smile. Marquis Lanyue quickly walked over. Master, I pay my respects to you. Marquis Lanyue knelt down and bowed to her master with respect. She was Lin Lan. Jian Wushuang had accepted her as his disciple right after arriving at the Divine Land. At that time, Jian Wushuang had used the heavenly creation skill to refine her witch poison, allowing Lin Lan the ability to start a new life. Then he had helped Lin Lan break off the engagement with the Luo family. Those things were engraved in her mind. Although she was a marquis and had a high status in the Divine Land, she had never forgotten her master who had helped her so much. After all, her master changed her fate. Get up. Jian Wushuang gestured to his disciple before Lin Lan stood up. When I left, you had just barely made it to the Saint Realm, but now you've reached this level during the last few years. Is brilliant. Jian Wushuang acclaimed. He marveled at his disciple's achievement. Lin Lan responded with modesty, all my achievements are because of you, master. I just helped you clear the witch poison. As for what you've achieved, it's because of your own ability. It's none of my business. Jian Wushuang shook his head and continued, I've seen you practicing your swordsmanship. You're good. Master, thanks for your compliments. That swordsmanship. Lin Lan had not finished her words yet. Little Lan. A cry was heard, then a red-haired man slowly walked over. Dear, come here. Lin Lan instantly went to pull her husband toward her master. Dear, this is my master, the one I've mentioned a lot to you. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.